All right.
Hello,
Hello.
Jacob. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing,
Thank
John?
I am doing wonderful. It's Ramadan, all going crazy,
Yeah,
everything. Thank you
of
for
course.
giving the time on such a short notice. I've been receiving a lot of queries about E2 visa from my viewers from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Azerbaijan, and just I wanted to ask about your what's the E2 visa, how one can apply, what are the restrictions, what are do's and don'ts, what business plan would need. Just tell us about E2 visa. My audience would be very interesting to learn about it. Over
Excellent.
to you.
Uh, Thank you so much, Zeeshan. So, we've been collaborating for a while now, and I think um, just providing knowledge and information to people, which is what is the most important thing that we do here. Just a couple of minutes, 1 minute about myself. I'm an immigration attorney based in San Diego, California. I help clients in all 50 states and all over the world. And we help clients pretty much both on East Coast and West Coast. We have offices both coasts, focusing on business immigration. So in this particular segment, we're talking about the E2 visa because people are interested in that. We have a lot of people that are interested. So the E2 visa is basically a special investor visa that is existing between the U.S. and many other countries. There's a list of treaties and countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and many other countries in Europe. They're part of this treaty, which means that their citizens are able to come to the United States and start a business and move here with their families. So let's talk about how it works. So, for example, the E2 visa doesn't have a number of investment. So the law doesn't say it has to be a certain amount. But what we tell our clients, based on experience, anything less than 100,000 is going to be very difficult to convince any government official that they're serious about their business. So the way it works is typically, let's say, take somebody from, let's say, Afghanistan or Bangladesh. So let's say a person there earned money either from salary all his life, or they're a business owner. They sold the real estate, and now they have some money in the bank. They clearly can show they sold the real estate. The money moved to the bank, and now they take this money and they're able to start a business in the U.S. So the first step will be is that they will work with a lawyer in the US to open their US company, because you have to have some kind of a US entity like an LLC or a C Corp to be able to hold your business. Once this entity is open, then the person will open a bank account. They can do it themselves, or they can use somebody in the US to help them, like a friend, or even sometimes we help clients to open the bank account. And then once the bank account is open, they move the amount to this account. Now, the reason this is important is because this is the moment where they start what is called the investment process. So, for example, let's say, examples of cases that we had. Somebody wanted to start. We have a client from Pakistan who started a small restaurant. So this client, who was an engineer back home, decided to get into the food business, and so he, did this, opened the company, opened the bank account, moved the money in there. He had a tourist visa, so he was able to come to the United States to meet with his partner in the US. They signed the lease of their restaurant, and using that money, they were able to finish renovation. They put a logo and hired a couple of people, because you need to have at least one employee for E2 visa business. But of course, if it's a restaurant, you need to have more than that. And then after a few months, when they launched this restaurant, I was able to take all these documents and submit them to the U.S. Embassy back home in Islamabad, and he was able to get his E2 visa. Another example, we had a client from Bangladesh, and this guy, he started a consulting company. He was an architect back home, and he started a construction remodeling business in Florida. And basically, he came to the United. In his case, he didn't have a tourist visa, so he did everything remotely. He was able to hire people remotely. We helped him a little bit with some things, and he was able to start everything while he was still back home. And then once the company was launched, so it means that the LLC, the bank account, he hired two employees. One of his employees was able to help him finish the registration of everything else, submitted the case to the U.S. Embassy back there, and he was able to come to the United States after 6 months. So this is the kind of things. Now, the beautiful thing about the E2 is that it depends on your country. So some countries you can get the visa for 2 years, some country up to 5 years. Some countries less than a year, depending on your country, and treaties change. The point is that once they're in the United States, they can stay here for up to 2 years, work on their business, and eventually, if the business goes well, they can transition from the E2 to a green card through either EB2 national interest waiver because they're doing something exceptional, or they can invest more money, like $800,000, into the EB5, which is a permanent green card option. So the E2 is a beautiful first launch priority because it's fast, it's less than a year, and you can bring your family. If you have a spouse, your spouse can come with you. And the beautiful thing about the E2, Zeeshan, is that the wife can work. The wife or the husband, they can work anywhere in the US. They don't have to work in the business of the investor. Children under 21 can go to school anywhere, just like green card holders. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful program that allows people to come to the United States because of that treaty. Very, very powerful visa. And there's no limit. You can apply for it anytime. You do it through the embassy, and you can arrive to the United States. And it's a good way to start your life. You don't need a job offer. You don't need a very high amount of investment. You don't need a relative here. You can do this, and you don't need education. I'll give you an example. We had another client. He was German, and he German Persian, and he didn't have any education. He was a car dealer in Germany. No education, barely had finished high school, but he made a lot of money in his car business, and his dream was to live in America. And so he invested about 400,000. They started an antique business in San Diego, where I'm located, and and basically all they care about is the fact that he had the money and the business plan and the experience as a business owner, which he was, and that was enough. He couldn't qualify for H-1B. He couldn't qualify EB-2 and IW at that time. He couldn't qualify for a family petition because he had no family here. So yeah, so that was an amazing opportunity. Come here with the E2.
Yeah, is there a premium processing thingy here where you can fast process it within few weeks?
So okay, great. So for example, let's say we have somebody who is inside the United States. Let's say you're a student from Pakistan, or a student from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, and you're currently in the US. Then yes, I can switch you from the student visa to the E2, or from a tourist visa to E2, and there's a fast process. You can pay an additional $1,500, and you can get this thing done in 2 weeks. However, most of our applicants are going to be coming from overseas, and there is no premium for embassy. You just submit it to the embassy. Typically, within 6 to 8 weeks, they'll call you for an interview for the E2, because the E2 has a special class. It's not like a tourist visa. You don't have to wait a year, and it's going to be much quicker to get it.
Okay, tell me about once the family comes here, can they buy the house? Can they do everything else like everyone else, or are there any restrictions?
So that's a good question. So basically, when the applicant, the investor, comes to the United States, him and their spouse, they'll be eligible for the Social Security number as soon as they come here, as soon as they are inside the United States. Within 30 days, they'll get the Social Security. The Social Security will allow them to do many things: open bank accounts, buy a car, buy a house, apply for a mortgage, start building credit. It's a very powerful thing. In fact, I have a lot of clients from Europe that prefer to stay on the E2 for 10, 15. Even I have a client, the longest client I have on E2 is a French guy. He's been on the E2 for 25 years. He doesn't want to get a green card. And the reason is because he says that as an E2, he pays less taxes because he's not considered to be a resident. He goes to Europe back and forth. And so you don't have to get a green card if you don't want to. You can, as I mentioned, there are ways, but the E2 you can stay on it forever. It's
Are there
renewable as long as your business is working. You can renew it.
any residence requirements? A lot of the folks that I talk to, in my mentor sessions, they said, okay, we have business, we want to liquidify it, but we need to go back to Pakistan, we need to go back to Bangladesh, to our
Yeah.
countries. So do they need to live here for all the time, or they can go
No,
back and
no, they can go back and forth. They don't have to live here all the time.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, for example, I have a client who he only spends 4 months in the United States on the E2 visa because he's a businessman. So there's no requirement to stay yeah.
so he can
Exactly.
go, but if he wants that his family lives here and while he's away, that's possible, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
So the family can be
how
here all the time,
yes.
and the guy can go back and forth.
Uh, So how we go about it? For example, I'm ready. I'm in Pakistan. I can spend 50,000-60,000 for my family. I have 4 kids, 5 kids. Family. I want to move. What to do next? How do they contact you? How do
So the next
family
step is
form?
that I
Visa? Yeah.
believe that you will post a link in the description of this video for people to get in touch. The link is going to
Okay.
be like a form to get qualifications. The background, just so we have information to see if we qualify, and then make sure to use this form so we'll be able to gather the data and start meeting with you on video one by one to discuss your case and in confidence, of course, in private, to determine whether you qualify and help start the process for you. It's very easy to do it in terms of communication, because once we determine the applicant qualifies, we set up a meeting to plan the whole E2 journey from the establishment of the company through the business plan, the format. We have a full division that does only E2s, and we help clients from A to Z, including business plan and other planning.
One last question. I was reading somewhere that to be able for an Indian to convert from H1B to green card, the wait period is like 92 years,
Correct.
and there are few changes happening in the EB2 investor visa as well. So how lucrative that E2 option is compared to the normal EB5 or something else?
So, like I said, E2 unfortunately is not an option for Indian nationals at the moment. However, if an Indian national, for example, becomes Canadian, then they can get an E2. If an Indian national, for example, becomes a member of one of these countries, for example, there's a list of countries. We can post a link in the description of this video. I'm going to send you the link of all the countries from the State Department. For example, let's say you get a passport from Cameroon, for example, which is not that hard to get. I think it costs about 100,000 or something to get a passport from Cameroon. Cameroon has an E2 treaty. If you're an Indian national, you buy a passport from Cameroon. Now you can qualify for the E2. You can also get a passport from a country like, Ethiopia. Ethiopia is also on the E2 list. It's not that hard to get a passport of Ethiopia. And so there are many ways to bypass. You don't have to be born in the country. You just have to be a citizen. Okay, so we have a lot of Indian and Pakistani nationals who moved to Canada, and now they can qualify for the E2 because of that.
And how do you compare E2 with the investor visa? With
So the E2 compared to the EB5, which is the big investor visa, is that the EB5 eventually leads to a green card, but the EB5 is currently taking a long time. A lot of my E2 clients will eventually apply for the EB5 if they want to get a green card, but you don't have to do it. The difference
But
is
for
that the
EB,
EB5 is more like a long-term thing. E2 is more immediate. That's how I
but
compare them. It's
EB5
like
you
an
would need like,
O1 and an EB2 national interest waiver. Same
so
comparison.
EB5 is like you need like $1 million or $800,000 to
800,000,
start.
close to a million, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is very very easy and very very cheap option, and it's very very
Absolutely.
fast. A premium processing
Exactly.
you can get in two
And
weeks. You are here for tourist visa. You can convert and all set. Yeah.
correct. And Zeeshan, a lot of people confuse the EB5 with other programs. Nobody is aware of the E2. They don't believe that there is a program that only with $100,000 you can move to the US. And so that's why
Perfect.
I think we're doing this video, because we want to educate people that the E2 is not the EB5. It's a whole separate program with a less
Sure.
amount of money to move.
Perfect. And thank you very much for helping my friends. I believe that you already helping like 25 of my friends getting here. Some of them already got approved in like literally in like few weeks. So
Of course.
awesome. Thank you very much, and thanks for your team.
Thank
Nice
you so
talking
much,
to you.
Zeeshan. It's a
Thank you.
pleasure always to be connected, and I appreciate all the viewers, and we hope to help more people, of course. Thank you, guys.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you. Bye bye.